Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of Let's Get Quilting. So my name is Maureen and I'm a quilter, and I'm here to help you make quilt blocks in order to make a quilt. Today in this episode we are going to cover 3 quilt blocks. They follow the same 9-patch grid that we've been currently working on. And these blocks are called, this one is called the Friendship Block. This one is called Butterflies on Parade. Isn't that cute? And this one is called the London Eye. So those are all easy blocks to make, and that'll wrap up our blocks that we are making. And at the end of this episode, I will talk about what's needed to put this quilt together. So in episode 6, we are going to put all of our blocks together and make a quilt. How great is that? Okay, so the first thing we need to talk about is the material and the measurements needed to make these 3 blocks. And here they are. So for the Friendship Block, which is this block right here, and we've made things like this before. We've made these half square triangles, and this is all this is just half square triangles and put into a different order. So for this block, you're going to cut from your whatever fabric you pick, fabric 1, you're going to cut 4 3 7/8 inch squares. From fabric 2, you're going to cut 1 3.5 inch square and 2 3 7/8 inch square. And from fabric 3, you're going to cut 2 3 7/8 inch squares. On fabric 1, you're going to need to make, again, that line drawn from corner to corner, and I've gone ahead and done that. So corner to corner, you want to draw your line so that we can sew on each side of that line. You're going to match it up to fabric 2 and 3. Right sides together, and we're going to sew on that line corner to corner. We're going to sew to the left of the line, we're going to sew to the right of the line, 1/4 of an inch each way. So let's get to the sewing machine to do that. So these are my blocks that I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch on either side of the drawn line that I've already made on this light color fabric. I put the right sides together. Oops. I put right sides together. Oops, I always do that backwards. And I will sew on that. Now, I did already sew on one just to a refresher as far as, so we have the line down the middle, and on either side of the line we have 1/4 of an inch seam. Hope you can see that. One thing I haven't talked about before is thread. It is very important when you use 100% cotton fabric that you use 100% cotton thread. At least that's what I have found. I tend to use a very neutral color thread, and I use this thread for all of my piecing. No matter what color my quilt is, I always use a neutral thread. And I do that so that I have the bobbin and the thread are both the same color. It works for me. Then I'm not purchasing, a navy to go with the navy, and I may never make a navy quilt again, but then I have all this thread. For me, it makes sense to stick with one color. For you, it may make sense to use different. I don't know. But I do know that after years of experience, and this product works for me, and I like the fact that I only have to deal with one color. I run my bobbin the same, and it works well for me. And when I see it on sale, I snatch it up, to be quite honest with you. Because thread, just like, our material, is expensive. So if you can find a good deal on it, buy it. It's not going to go bad. They do say to protect it from light, so I don't put it near where the, the window with light coming in. I do try to take care of that. And also I do that for my fabric. I don't put it near a window that has light coming in. And if I can't avoid that, the light coming in, then I cover up my fabric with, say, like an old piece of sheeting or a piece of batting, just enough so that when the sun is directly on it, it takes that away. I have had fabric fade before because of that, and I did not realize until it was too late and it was in the fold. So I do take precautionary measures in that respect. So I've gone ahead and made my half square triangles, as you can see, and laid them out in the order in which the pattern calls for. I also, when I pressed all of them to the dark side fabric. And if there's a choice between two fabrics that are light, like this one, I always, there's always like a little bit of darker, so I always press it to the dark side. Just something I got in the habit of, and so that's what I do. So this will go together in that we'll put the strips together just like before, and then I'll sew the rows together and we'll have a block. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Maureen, this is way too easy a quilt block for us. We've already been challenged. But sometimes it's nice to take a step back and just make an easy quilt block, because you hone in on your skills, but then you also have a sense of accomplishment that you have finished a block and it's fast and they're easy to make up, and you can move on to another block that's a little bit more challenging. So, I don't mind making easy blocks every once in a while. Sometimes I wish I picked patterns that had easier blocks, but I tend not to. So for me, I kind of like taking a little bit of break from the challenge of quilt blocks and make something very easy and get it done. So here are the two blocks, the friendship blocks that I made. And isn't that great when you have two of these that are just different placement as far as the color palette goes? It makes a real difference in the block. So because they're so easy, I hope you make a few of them, because I know I will. The next block that we are going to tackle is called Butterflies on Parade. Isn't that cute? I love that name. Who doesn't like a butterfly? So these are the requirements for the Butterflies on Parade. You'll need 3 fabrics. From fabric 1, you are going to cut 4 3.5-inch squares. From fabric 2 and 3, you are going to cut 3 4 1/4-inch squares. One of the fabrics, one color, you're going to draw a line corner to corner, which I will do. And we are going to learn a little bit new technique incorporating what we've already learned, but we're just going to expand it a little bit. So here we go. The first step in making this block here, which is our little butterflies, and here I already have one made of the 2 fabrics that we're now using. So you can see that. It's so cute. So the first step that we are going to do is we are going to make half square triangles. So again, the old method of drawing the line corner to corner and then sewing on the right and left of the line 1/4 of an inch in each direction. So I am going to go ahead and do that, cut it, press it, and come back. I've gone ahead and made my half square triangles. Now I have 2 of them, and what I want to achieve is this. So what I have to do is I have to put these 2 together, and I want to do opposites. So I want to put the green with the purple, the green with the purple, the green with the purple. Now I went ahead and I pressed my seams all to the purple side, okay? So that way, when I put my 2 pieces together, they nest together. Now on this block, I actually press them all open. And so it really doesn't matter. I was trying to experiment to see which one worked better, and honestly, they kind of work the same. So what I will do is I'm going to put these 2 together. I'm going to mark a line, again, from corner to corner, and sew on either side 1/4 of an inch. And this will give me, when I open it up, it will give me a triangle of quadrants. So here I have all of my pieces sewn together, pressed, and laid out in the order in which the pattern calls for. 2 things that I just want to caution about. 1, make sure that the orientation when you go to put your 2 half square triangles together, make sure that your orientation is correct before you sew, and then certainly before you cut, because we don't want to have to use our friend the seam ripper too often. The other thing that I want to caution you with is in putting in the pattern, we also want to make sure the orientation of the butterflies are all in the same direction. Okay, so we don't want a rogue one going the another way. And before we sew, I just wanted to point out, so what I ended up doing is sewing, pressing the second seam. I pressed it on the open, and on these ones that I pressed, I also pressed it on the open. These are the ones that I pressed all to the purple fabric, so it really made no difference when I went to put them together, and I was, like I said, I was just experimenting which is the best way to do it. Either way, just be consistent. If you pick one way, just be consistent and do all your blocks that way. And just make sure that you go ahead and cut off your little dog ears before you put your pattern together. What I did do, because this is a 9-patch coordinate block, I pressed the seams on the rows. I pressed them one way on the top, I pressed them the opposite way on the middle, and then on the third I pressed as the top. And that way they nested again together. And on the back, what I did was I just pressed open the seams, so that way they laid a little flat. So here are the 2 blocks that I've made of my butterflies on parade. I think they're kind of cute, kind of springy, kind of nice. Our last block that we are going to make in this series is called the London Eye. And this is the block that we're going to make. Whoops. Isn't that cute? So what we need for this block, we're going to use all 4 colors. And what we need is we're going to cut 4 squares, 3 7/8. We're going to cut 2 squares, 3 7/8, and 1 square, 4 1/4. We're also going to cut 1 large 4 1/4 square, which I have here. Okay, so this is the 1 square 4 1/4, and I bisected it on both diagonals. So now I have 4 pieces. And the fourth fabric is 1 square 3 1/2 inches. So what I have to do now is I have to take this 4 1/2 inch square, and I have to again bisect it just like this one, on diagonal, corner to corner, on both corners. So when I do this, the only thing I suggest is that you don't, once you cut it, don't move it, so that you can cut both of them. So you want to line up your ruler corner to corner. You don't have to make a line on the back of the fabric. If you feel more comfortable, go ahead and do that, but I don't feel as though you have to. Just use your rotary cutter, cut corner to corner, and then without moving the fabric, but move the ruler, line it up to the other corners, and now you have 4 triangles. These 4 triangles are going to match with these 4 triangles. So one more step to do before we get to sewing. So my 4 3 7/8 inch squares, I have 4 of them, 2 and 2. 2 of them are going to make half square triangles with this other fabric. So we're going to make half square triangles. I've drawn my line corner to corner, and I will sew those. These 2 I need to dissect just on one diagonal, so just one corner to corner. Unlike the last one that we did when we did it in quadrants, 4. This one we're only going to cut it in half. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just corner to corner. To make 2 triangles. I have my half square triangles all made and pressed, and I pressed it to the dark side. So what I want to make next is this square right here. So it consists of the 2 small triangles and the large triangle. Sometimes I have a hard time getting a little orientated with the camera. I apologize. So this is the block that we're going to make. So we have our pieces that we had dissected on both corners to corner, and we're going to put them together. We're going to sew them together. And so when I do that, I want to put a pin on the seam that I'm going to sew. Because if I have a whole lot of these and I get distracted by, go to put a wash on or have lunch or something, I come back and I go, oh, what seam did I want to sew? But this way I know that the area where the pin is the area where I'm going to sew the seam. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to sew all of these. The other thing that I would caution you is when you go to put it in your machine, needle down, I'm going to stop my machine. When I go to put this into the machine, I want to make sure that I lift up my presser foot and I put this close to the needle. And the reason I do that is because it's a small piece of fabric and it can get sucked down into the hole if you do it too fast or if you, especially on a point, when you go to do a point and you're trying to feed that into your, you're trying to feed a point into your machine, because the point is so small, it can get sucked into the machine and it'll ruin your point. So take the time to lift up the presser foot, orient your piece of fabric, and you will save yourself a lot of hassle. So all 4 of my little triangles are made. They're cute. And now I'm going to attach them to the block that we just cut in half one way. And that's going to make our 3.5 inch block for our pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Press it towards the dark side, as I do always, and then we'll come back and we'll put our pattern block together. So I'm going to go ahead and put these pieces together to make a row, and then I'm going to sew the rows together to make the block. So here's the finished block that we have. This is called the London Eye. I think that's kind of cool. And this is it again, just in a different color coordinating pattern, and it makes a difference. So we did, again, 3 blocks, 2 very easy ones, one a little bit different technique. And my next thing is to put them all together. So in next episode, I will show you how I am going to put my quilt together. I am going to turn out about 30 blocks that I have so far. And that's about all I'll probably make. And when I go, and we'll do this next time, when I go to lay it out, I'll see how it lays out, in what order I want to put the blocks. I may have more of one than I have another, and I'm going to scatter them all around. And also, we'll talk about batting. Batting is something that, man, you could take a whole course on batting. There's many different kinds. There's wool batting, there's polyester batting, there's bamboo batting, there's 100% cotton, and even on the 100% cotton, there's many varieties. I tend to stick with one type of batting. I buy and this is an example of it, I buy 100% cotton batting. It has a little bit of nubs on one side, nothing on the other. And it's obviously low loft is like how thick it is. And I tend to use that consistently. Again, it's 100% cotton, easily washable, dryable. The thing about my batting is I don't wash it before I quilt it. Unlike my fabric, where I want to get that stiffening off of it, the batting doesn't have that. You can wash it before. I don't really know why you would. I don't. I put my quilt together, I quilt it, and then I wash my final quilt, my final wash. And what that does is that it kind of gives it that nice antique-y, lived-in feeling look and feel. And I like that. So we will put our quilt blocks together next time. We'll add some borders, and that'll be that. It'll be great. So I hope to see you on my next episode of Let's Get Quilting.